fellow speakers. This is Brian, the Speaker for the Dead, coming to you tonight with another episode of Expanding the Expanse, episode 6, which is called Displacement. Now, I'm going to be trying to shorten these videos up just a little bit. They've been getting extremely long. I'm going to try and cut them down to maybe 10 to 15 minutes at the most per episode. Just want you guys to be aware of the change. I'm doing this because the interest is not there, and I probably won't be doing this again. So from now on, if an episode or if a TV series is released in binge format with all of the episodes being dropped at once, I will not do an episode by episode breakdown. It's too hard to keep the interest up. The views for my videos are going down on these, and the comments aren't even staying steady now, which is sad because I love talking about The Expanse and it's so much fun and I love making these videos, but apparently I'm one of the only ones. So, But I am going to finish up this season with doing the episode breakdowns. But if they don't stop doing the binge model, then that's what's going to happen in the future. I will just do a breakdown of the entire season, and in future for all other binge released series that I review, that will be the format. This is the second time I've tried to do an episode by episode breakdown of a binge watch TV show, and it just doesn't work. You can't keep the excitement up. Everybody's watched it 2-3 times, and you know, they already have their thoughts and they figured out what they want to do or what they think about the show, and so they start to the interest wanes, which I think is sad, because I could talk about The Expanse all the time, anytime. So anyway, let's get to it so that we can keep this short. So it starts off right where the previous episode ended. One of the islands on the other side of the planet has just exploded, completely destroying the island, leaving no trace of it, and basically causing a huge problem. What this amounts to is that it's going to, it will lead to an earthquake, followed by a shock wave with winds up to 200 kilometers per hour, 7 hours after the earthquake, and then approximately 8 to 10 hours after that, a tsunami will hit the camp. So it's basically racing around from the opposite side of the planet, because this was a gigantic explosion. They kind of allude to how big it is in the episode. It's like 50 megatons, or like you think it's even greater than that. It's like 50 times 50. So I mean, it was huge. It was equivalent of almost like a meteorite hitting the planet. So that's kind of what's happening. Last episode, we see that the two groups are squared off. They're fighting. They're hacked off at each other, and they're going at each other. Holden's trying to explain the truth, tell them what's really going on there. And like a bunch of retards who are only concerned about their self-interest, they're not listening. And then the explosion happens, which seems to end the argument. And I've noticed in this episode, or this series, it seems to be the only way to end an argument between these two groups is to have something horrible and catastrophic happen. You'd think that it wouldn't take that every single time, but it does.
I believe you too. You see the quotations I'm making with my claw hands? It means I don't believe you.
So they all get the reports of the explosion. Yeah, and that tends to shake everybody out of their stupidity, and they start planning an evacuation. The only way the Belters will agree to go is if Holden supports their claim, tries to help them stay on the planet, and they agree to go, which pisses Mercury off, of course, because he's a psycho.
I super hate you.
And shortly after that, they find Felsia on the Barb, the Barbara Piccolo, I think is the name of the Belter ship. They say it a couple different times, and they're saying it in the accent, so I can never quite get exact. They just call it the Barb, so that's what I'm going to call So they call it the Barb, and they find Felsia on it. She learns what her mother did, and now she's hacked off at her mother, which is really funny to me. The kid's perspective on things always makes me laugh, because it's just like kids judging adults for things they don't even understand. Not to say that her mother didn't deserve to be judged for, I don't know, killing 23 people in a shuttle accident, but you know. So anyway, that's when they learn that the fusion reactors all fail on the ship due to something that the protomolecule is doing to prevent any further explosions like the one that has caused the destruction of the island on the other side of the planet, which basically stops them from coming down and doing the rescue plan the way they were planning. So then we jump to see Bobby is working at her new job as an enforcer. She grabs this guy and basically stops him from going after the guy that she works for now, the detective cop. That's kind of a good bad guy. Anyway. And so the like I said, the evacuations are halted because of the problem. One of the shuttles tries to come down, and it burns up in orbit about the time that one of the moons starts to melt, which would be a problem. So that's a problem. And the Barb, with reactors out, the Barb was lower in the atmosphere. So now they've got the problem of the Barb's our orbit is decaying with no way of preventing it, because it was not ever rigged to enter an atmosphere. It was only a deep space ship. So it doesn't have the thruster capabilities to push itself through other means other than the reactor out of the planet's gravity. So it's going to fall and burn up first, but they're all eventually going to fall out of orbit and burn up. The others just have longer because they have greater battery storage. So the Edwards Israel's shuttle is destroyed upon entry. That stops, and so they decide they need to figure out what to do to come up with a plan C. And Holden suggests they go to the ruins and get inside. He tells them how he got inside. So they make a plan to go and do that. That's when we jump to the OPA. We see Avasarala getting a report that there's no more communication coming from Illis or New Terra, and she's not really happy about that. So that leads us to a confrontation between Murtry and Holden, because Holden's going to support the Belters' claim. He's pissed off and won't let the Belters go up on the shuttle unless they agree to dump their ore. Just the small-mindedness of these two groups is everybody. It's like watching a bunch of squirrels protect their nuts. No pun intended. But they're my dollies, and I'll take them and go home if you don't play the way I want you to play. It's really, you feel bad for Holden. He's caught between these two squabbling children and with guns, and that doesn't seem to be something that's going to be resolved in a happy way.
It makes me just want to pick up whoever is standing closest to me
and just throw them through this window and out into the infinite abyss of nothingness.
I want to do it so bad.
I know you do, sir.
But then we end up seeing the UN shows up on Medina Station and begins to question the OPA because of the incident that occurred at the end of the last episode, where one of the ships is destroyed that was supposed to be the Sojourner, which was supposed to have been sold for scraps in the last episode by Marco Inaros, and it was on course to destroy an asteroid spotting station. They took it out. Now the UPA or the UN has showed up at Medina Station, hacked off at the OPA because, hey, this ship was supposed to be gone. Why did we have to blow it out of the sky? And so we see we see Ashford and Drummer on the Medina Station talking with this guy, and now there's a UN destroyer or a UN warship that's parked next to the station because they're upset with the OPA's inability to handle the situation. Which you could see it from their perspective. They had a near attack on one of their on the Earth because of what's happened. So those two are now, there's a line, and I really like this scene because it shows that tension between them and Drummer or Ashford. And I have to say, Ashford is very quickly becoming one of my favorite characters. I mean, he started to in the last season, but this season he really becomes one of my favorite characters in the show. I really do enjoy him in this. He just brings like a gravitas, just a weight of a character to this show, and he's a fun character. And he's sitting there and he goes, they are measuring your office for curtains. Drummer's like, what? That's an old Earth saying, meaning they're going to take what is yours. It's just he's so good. Then back on Mars, we see that Bobby's done with her job, and she goes to play patty cake, like in Roger Rabbit, patty cake, patty cake, patty cake. Sorry, old film reference. She goes to play patty cake with Thomas, the former soldier that she met in some of the previous episodes, and they play patty cake. And then she leaves. She goes to meet up with her new friends and plan the next score, the next job. Back on New Terra, the people get to the ruins and start to prep for entry into the ruins. Specifically the one that Holden entered the last time they were there. They start, and then we see a scene where Murtry and we have this really unpleasant conversation about the future. Basically, the realities of what's going to happen when everybody realizes that the relief ships aren't going to get there in time. It's going to take weeks. They have some hard realities to realize, and that there's not going to be enough for all the mouths that are there. And they start talking about contingency plans to make sure that the RCE survive and the Belters don't if it comes down to it. So, and it's just, like I said, once again here, you see the sides of two squabbling children with guns. And it's just really sad. You can understand he's trying to protect his people, but he seems to enjoy tormenting the Belters in the process. So then we go back to Dr. Oye and discover that she's the black bobbed-haired doctor that I can never pronounce her name. So I started spelling it different in my notes so that I can pronounce it correct. And it is Oye. Discovers an infection in her eye, and it's the one she alluded to in that last episode where the one RCE person has some green stuff around her eye. She finds that she's infected and she's starting to lose her vision a little bit.
I'm not afraid.
You will be. You will be.
And then we go back to Medina Station where Ashford, and this is probably one of my favorite scenes in this episode. Ashford is watching a video of himself with a baby, which I would assume is his son or his grandchild. It's a child that he obviously cares about, and we hear him singing to his child. And then he starts to talk with Drummer, and they are talking about finding they're locating Marcos and Eros, and they're getting closer. Bobby endangers herself in the next scene. We see they're performing this job that there's their next job. They're supposed to be stealing some equipment from one of the old terraforming stations on Mars. She has to go outside in a suit with very little air, and she struggles and gets locked out, and then we cut away from that scene. The people on New Terra blast their way into the ruins and begin putting people down in there. It's going to take a long time because it's like one person at a time, and they've got hundreds of people to get put down inside, or over 100 people. They never really give you a count of how many people are on New Terra. Seems to be less and less all the time, though, because in this, right around this time, we see the shockwave hit the camp, which is one of the scenes you see in the trailer for this season, where Dr. Oye and Holden are standing inside that container, and it explodes from the outside, and they drop and stuff. That's when the shock wave hits the camp with high velocity winds. And like I said, a few more belters get killed outside after just being told, get inside, don't be outside, and then they're outside.
No! No!
It's like people have no sense of self-preservation. Get inside, the shockwave's almost here. Oh, well, I think I'll go for a walk. Who does that? Anyway, so they find Marco and Eros back on Medina Station. They're talking between Drummer and Ashford, and they find Marcos is on this ship, and they're making a plan to go capture him. The tsunami hits and destroys the camp just as they're trying to get the door closed and sealed up inside the ruins. They're having a hard time getting the door closed, and just as the tsunami hits, Holden helps get a rod and pry the door up, and then jumps inside, and the water's pouring in, and that's where the episode ends. So that's basically this episode. Now this, all the episodes are really good. This one is just kind of, there's a lot that happens. There's some pretty cool action scenes, but I wouldn't say this is my favorite episode. This is just more of a, furthering the story, getting along, figuring stuff out and stuff. But there's not a lot of super big things that happen in this episode. I mean, the tsunami hits and some other things, but it's really more, this is a very much a character building episode for this group of people. We're learning about more of each of these characters. Like I said, we get to see a bit of a more of an insight into Ashford's past and why he has changed, why he's doing what he's doing, and maybe why he's trying to build a better life, because he has children now, and suddenly he realizes that he can't act the way he's been acting, which is one, as a man who has 6 children, I can tell you that's one of the biggest reasons that having children is a great thing, because it suddenly makes you not the center of the world. It suddenly makes you realize that there are more important things than you, and the people who are truly bad parents are the ones who never figure that out. So anyway, it was a great episode. I liked this one. I liked every one this season. They're great. This one is just more of a, there's a lot going on, stuff like that, but it's nothing major happens in this episode. But I miss Miller. I really do. Every episode he's not in here, I'm just like, when's Miller coming back? I'm sorry. I love Miller. I love him and Holden's interactions with each other. They're always funny. They're always fun. They bring a lightheartedness to the series that I think is great. Amos doesn't play a huge part in this episode, which he's usually the thing that brings the levity for me. He talks a little bit, but he's actually more serious in this episode than we've seen him be in a lot of the past episodes. You see him, there's more character development with him, where you see him expressing concern for Wee, which is, or Chandra Wee. And it's fun to watch that dynamic between those two. She kisses him at one point, and he's like, what was that for? She's like, well, just in case. It's like, It's just fun to see the awkwardness because, poor Amos, he just doesn't understand why people do things. And it's just interesting to see how he deals with the real world. Anyway, this is another great episode. I hope you go watch it again and then come watch the review, because that's the best way to do this so that we can talk about this. Please let me know what you liked, what you didn't like. Tell me if these are too long. Tell me what you see as the problems, because I am definitely seeing a drop off in the viewership of my videos, which if I'm doing something that you're not happy with, hey, tell me. It's okay. I can take it. I'm a big boy. If there's nothing I can do, you're just kind of, we all have our attentions being pulled in multiple different directions. I'm trying to watch about 5 or 6 different series to do reviews of and stuff at all the different times, which is why it takes me longer to do each one of these, because I'm doing a much more in-depth breakdown for this show, because I love it the way I do than I do with any of the others. If you've noticed with The Mandalorian, I've done a couple videos, but they were definitely not in depth. They did not go into greater detail. I would do much greater detail reviews of these shows if the viewership was there. I just don't feel like it is. And which is sad, and it's one of the limiting parts of this particular format and way of doing things. Anyway, thanks for being here. Thanks for watching. Let me know what you think in the comments. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. That helps get the word out so that we can get more people excited about The Expanse, because that's the goal. That's the goal, to keep our show going, is to make people realize how great this show is. So thanks for watching, and we will talk to you next time. Bye now.